I'm David. I'm a financial and career coach and super excited to be here. Thanks so much for having me, Mike. I've been
Thank you.
at it
Thank
for
you.
almost 7 years and yeah, definitely help folks in all walks of life, all ages, all decades. And yeah, definitely can't wait to chat about what we've both learned.
So, what was your background? What got you into coaching yourself, or actually, you do specifically financial coaching, and then a couple other things, but mostly financial. What got you into that route?
Yeah, well, in my life, I would say the theme of it is I've just wanted to help people. And so my degree is actually in criminal justice. I thought I was going to be a cop there for a minute. And then I tried out once. I was like, wow, I don't really like this at all. And then I wanted to marry my wife. So I went after whoever would say yes first, and that was a library. So I became a librarian. So offshoot from cop to librarian, but still the theme of helping people. And my wife and I, we had our debt-free journey was about 3.5 years. We had gotten out of debt in 2017, right before my firstborn was born. And I really was searching. I was like, what do I really want to do? Because up till that point, it was just whatever job came along. So I really wanted to find something that was important and impactful. And I ended up in a position at a rental car agency because I was a little foolish and I just kind of left my job. And I was like, I'm debt free. I can go do anything now. But it was interesting. It was all part of God's plan because I'm in cars with these folks who most of them had the worst day of their life. Their cars got totaled. And I'm supposed to be selling them things like let's get some gasoline and all that. But I'm talking about finances and sharing what my wife and I had done and what we had gone through. And it was I tell you, maybe my memory is exaggerated, but it feels like I had about 50 conversations where people would just, oh, thank you so much, or crying. And I'm just like, wow, this is actually helping people.
Hmm.
What's always been in the back of my mind, how do you monetize this? And the internet must have been listening because the Ramsey Financial Coach Master Training Program kept popping up on my phone a few months later. And I took it, went through it, and I started my financial coaching practice in 2018. And since I had a lot of experience as a manager and where does money come from careers, career coaching just kind of went into there. And truly, when someone signs up for career or financial, we end up talking about the other thing anyway.
So, yeah, I think a lot of people make a mistake of thinking that. Let's say they make a mistake that thinking that something like managing your finances, getting out of debt, building strong wealth is just purely non-psychological. It's just a matter, you got to time the market, you got to do this, you got to work a really high-end job. But even people who are making crazy amounts of money still somehow manage to go broke. And so what degree do you see with people you work with, especially men in particular nowadays, who don't realize the underlying problem of some kind of unresolved psychological issue contributing to their financial issues?
Yeah, well, they're always, men in general, we're always wanting to get out of things logically.
Hmm.
And what's funny for me is, well, all the information is on Google. All the information that you have, you can go find it in 5 minutes. But yet you're still having a problem implementing that every day. And it's always, yeah, that wife, she's crazy. She's spending everything. And then, oh, I don't spend anything. I live very simply. But then they always hear these things. But when we delve deep, yeah, but I got a jet ski. It was only $5,000. I didn't tell her about but he's getting on her about the $20 makeup and the $30 here and the $40 Amazon thing. And yeah,
Hmm.
but we guys, I think we like to buy things, big things.
Yeah. So, how often do you come across guys who have this kind of, I wouldn't say, shame is, I guess is the word, but it's almost embarrassment about admitting to having spent certain things for certain, what's the word, status,
Mhm.
trying to elevate their status. I bought a jet ski because I wanted to show off to my friends. I bought a new car because I wanted to make sure my coworkers knew how awesome I was.
Yeah.
And how often they have to then dig deep and try to figure out why do you need a new house every 2-3 years? Why do you need a new car every 5 months? Is it really that you're that happy, or is it something else below that?
Well, I would say one of the challenging things with guys is they love to make it like, oh, I have to do this for work. I love that. One of the big things, I have to do this because of this. And, for my work, we had to get that $6,000 truck. We had to. When you look into it, yeah, you could have actually just spent 10,000. But they always love to do that. So there always seems to be some sort of masking with a good reason. And I'll tell you, my Christian brothers out there, there's also oh, we want to be giving. We want to be charitable. We want to do these things. And they're telling me, oh, yeah, I went outside of my budget because I bought this and this for the church.
Mm,
Even that in
mm.
and of itself can be a dangerous status thing, right? And I was like, well, but are you being a good steward of what God has given you in the first place to be able to give in this way that you want to? So what I really try and focus on is a lot of these things aren't exactly bad. Some of them might be, if we delve into some of those reasons, if we want to show off. But a lot of what I found is, yeah, it's not bad to have these dreams, even dreams of nice things, but just not right now or not in this order. We have to go in order, not out of order.
Mhm.
And a lot of folks, especially in my generation, it seems like, I don't know, maybe not generational. It seems like since I've taken care of older folks too, it just seems like a general idea across human beings that we really just want to get over here and we want to force that to happen. And that's where folks get themselves into trouble.
Yeah, like keeping up with the Joneses and things like that. Absolutely. And sometimes part of it can just be innate human psychology saying, like, yeah, I'm just wired to seek status. I'm wired to seek extra resources, maybe to show off to the ladies, show off to the people around me, have a little bit of sense of that. But we were talking briefly before we started recording how often you get people, or people in general, the sense of like, well, I need a new house because I need a new car because, and you really start to dig into it and you're like, why do you feel like I need new things? I feel inadequate. Why do you feel inadequate? Like, because growing up sucked. Yeah, do you see that a lot in your practice as far as guys who work? Like, do you end up having like walking in with like, okay, let's talk about your debt, and then ending up with like, okay, tell me about your father.
Oh, tell me about your Oh yeah, all the time, all the time. And we all have our own stories. I mean, one of the reasons I became a coach in the first place is because my parents went through bankruptcy when I was growing up.
Mm,
I had a lot of
there it
anger
is.
towards them because of that. And they were my first clients, basically. And I was terrible. I was just telling them how stupid they were all the time. But when I started to learn and actually asked my dad, where did this come from? How did you feel about this? A lot of, especially men, this is one of the big issues is
Mm-hmm.
I work so hard, so I deserve this. And that was
Mm.
a lot of what my dad went through. There was a time where, where we went to Disneyland, couldn't afford it, did a little check into cash action to go to Disneyland. But it all comes from I work so hard. My life is so hard that I deserve this.
Mm.
And then folks get themselves into trouble.
Do you ever have clients you work with who, especially maybe the men, who have a sense of like I said the Christian thing is a good one because in terms of religion, I think there is an underlying theme that's very very effective for people to say like, well, there's something bigger than yourself you're working towards collectively, which means no matter what amount you're contributing is still helping out. And then within that has this sense of appreciation. But I wonder then if there's ever people who are like I said, I work so hard, therefore I deserve this because I don't feel appreciated elsewhere in my life. I wonder how often there's something you got people come in like financial issues, and it turns out you're about to get divorced because you hate each other because your relationship is that's where the relationship you're spending money to cover up the fact that you and your wife and your husband haven't gotten along in years or something like that, and it's always like a deeper issue somewhere in there. I wonder like the appreciation thing could be a big one where it's like we don't have to go to Disneyland because like we have a ton of fun every summer in the backyard,
Yeah.
even with just like the sprinklers, just a sprinkler and a kiddie pool or running around playing football versus spending $10,000 for a trip, for a one-time trip that we're barely gonna have memories about because we're gonna be yelling and screaming the whole time about the money it costs to get here.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, I've been doing it for so long. All of that. I've had all of these different
Mm,
situations, and I truly think it is, and this is something I've been really zoning in on recently. It's they don't feel needed,
mm, mm,
feel impactful. They don't have hope that they will be impactful one day. And so their dreams begin to die and life happens. And so it's almost like since I can't hope for anything better, since I'm not dreaming anymore, this is the best I'm going to get. So I'm going to spend my money today. And so what I really try to work through to counteract that is let them know there is nobody in this world like you. I mean, truly, Mike, one of the saddest things to me and what I am fighting for personally as a financial coach is how much are we as a society missing out on because so many folks are in slavery to their debt, to addiction, to anything else. They're slaves. I mean, could we have had the cure for cancer already? Could we have, you know what I mean? Like, how many folks just didn't get to go and further their education or go and try that small business that they wanted to because they're stuck? And so it really is the murder of so many prosperous and amazing things that humans can do, but we're losing so much of the population to this is just how life is, and life isn't going to get better. So I'll tell you, so I say that to my clients, you're needed. There's no one like you with your experience, with your ideas, with what you bring to the table. You are, I mean, I had a client a little while ago and I had them say, I am needed, and couldn't get it out without crying
Yep.
because
Yep. Yep. Yep.
they don't believe that. And so if that's one of the first things I do with my clients is write down your reason why. Write down what you want your future to look like in high definition. I wake up in the morning and I see this and I feel this and I smell this and I'm moving towards this, and then laminate the thing, put it up somewhere. And when we go back to opportunities and doors opening and budgets, now it's not just, oh, I got to do this or my coach is going to be mad at me, because we can't be with them forever. We can't be
Yeah.
with them all the time. We have to teach them to build these muscles on their own so that they can grow. So having that as a cornerstone of everything they do, then it becomes, this budget is exciting and moving me towards the life I say I want. And
Mhm.
so if that doesn't help, then we need to revisit that, because we have to have a strong enough motivation that's theirs to get them moving forward.
Yeah, the I am needed thing. It's my approach is a combination of like I'm trying to get a combination of it, trying to get the overlap between like spirituality, more abstract than the science behind us, the neuroscience and all that stuff. And are you familiar with the concept of learned helplessness?
Ooh, I've heard of it before. Remind me.
In a nutshell, it's basically like it's how you psychologically, I don't say how you, but a form of learned, quite literally learned hopelessness is really like the better way to say it.
Yeah.
Is that when you live through environments and scenarios in your life enough times that you try everything, you try everything, you think that could work and nothing works,
Yeah.
you end up just basically saying, screw it, I'm not going to try anymore. And what they did, it was like a groundbreaking study in like the 1970s and 80s. They did with rats, they did it with dogs. I
Yes.
think they kind of did with people.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, where basically they had them like a cage where they're going to get zapped, but they had a way for the rats to not get zapped. And once they learned how to like where to stand and what time when like a timer went off and like a little buzzer went off and then a zap would happen on the floor, something like that. But then they moved them to cages where they couldn't escape, and then had them there, and then they put them back into the cages where they could actually get at it, but they couldn't figure out how to get out of the zap. And the thing you see is a lot of human beings, a lot of people who just basically when you're trapped, especially growing up. This is a big part of it. Like people I think there's a bit of a pushback around the idea of childhood affecting your sense of self, your sense of identity, especially into the rest of your life. Why you have a hard time like saving money, why you have a hard time with discipline, because like you said, there's this feeling of like, why bother?
Yeah.
What's the point? Because your brain is literally saying, well, looking in the past, it was nothing but crap.
Yeah.
So why is the future going to be any better? And from there, it takes just a lot of, like you said, baby steps. And I am wanted, I am needed, I have purpose, and finding purpose, plastering on the wall. Like what I do, I was recommended to me, it was a big one for me, was with the men's coaching, especially with like the emotional stuff. I have a picture of me when I was 2 years old. It sits right on my desk.
Yeah.
So if I'm having like a crap day, you just look at it and you're like, oh, you're doing it for him. You're doing it for that little kid who just had a hard time growing up and all that stuff. And it's a nice little grounding reminder. The same way you might put like a plaster on the wall saying, this is why I'm doing it.
Yeah.
This is where we're going. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
that's why it needs to be written down, because you have to remind yourself every day.
Oh, yeah.
Hard days, on the good days, on the medium days, you have to be reminded
Mm-hmm.
of what you're fighting for, because those that's a lot of my clients deal with, those ideas, your parents. I grew up with a lot of, we can't do that, we can't afford that, we can't. I heard that all the time. So I myself, I who knows how healthy this was, but I just rejected it, and I got angry. I was like, no, that can't be true. I don't know where it came from, to tell you the truth, but I was just like, this doesn't make sense. There has to be a way out, and I'm going to figure it out. I was a nut. When I was in second grade, I was already writing like daily schedules for myself. So who knows
That's great.
there, but yeah, but I came out a little different.
Do you notice with the people you work with, like a handful of them come in with this what we refer to in the men's coaching space? It's like stuck versus trapped. So some people who are stuck, it's like, I know what to do. I know I should be doing something. I just literally have no idea what to do. Versus trapped, where they might come in and say, like, I know what I should do, and I just don't want to do it. And I don't feel like it's any point in doing
I would say a fair amount of both.
it. Hmm.
Uh, there probably leans more towards, I know what to do, but I just don't know how to take those little steps to get there.
Mhm.
And I wonder if it's a societal issue, but there's people, we just have something in us that makes us want to blame other people. The blame always gets thrown around, and it's my wife, it's my boss, it's whatever's. So another thing that I think we as men need to work on is ownership. If you can get to the point where, not being too hard on yourself, but everything's kind of my fault, like, what can I control with
Yeah.
this situation to make it better? Can I, when my wife is asking for something and I just feel stressed because it's not in the budget, I can either A, just get mad at her, shut her down, and then all of a sudden she starts buying things behind my back, or B, I can pull out the budget. We can work on it together, and I can show her, hey, just so you know, this is going to put us over here. What do you think? Give me your ideas, because I'd love to make this happen for you, but we want to make sure that we're also protecting our savings, protecting what we're trying to do, our goals that we've written down over here. So we all have those options, of how we can control what we can control, instead of, oh, she's annoying me. She just wants, here, just stop annoying me. Take the card, take the card. And then we find, ourselves as men down the road, but that's actually just a lack of leadership, really, and a lack of listening.
Yeah, the ego thing there, just having to divert the blame to somebody else, putting it off on somebody else, like you said, instead of lack of leadership.
Yeah.
That's a big one that a lot of guys. That's a multi-layered problem there as to where that comes from. But yeah, I would imagine a lot of times you probably have guys and girls you work with too that have this. Well, that's what my parents did. That's what I saw growing up. That's what my grandparents did. I don't see what the problem is, even though my life is crap and my up to my eyeballs in debt, and I can barely pay like the light bill. But that's what we did. That's just what you do. Or we don't talk about money. We don't talk about it. We just that's.
Most of the time, it's nobody talks about it. Most of the and that's it's funny. One of the reasons why I got this awesome shirt that you see before you is folks come in stressed. They come in not relaxed at all because they're not used to talking about money at all. So I might be the very first conversation that they've had about money, even with each other. Like we just don't talk about it.
Yeah.
But what's funny is folks who say they don't talk about it, all the complaints that they're mentioning to me is all about money. So someone's thinking about it a lot, but they're just fearful of how the other person is going to react, because it's such a close subject to folks' hearts.
Yeah, I can see this as like an extension of a fear of revealing status, like almost where you sit in the hierarchy of things. That it's easier to drive a really nice car and not say you're $100,000 in debt because it looks like you're really good. But if everyone said, "Oh, he drives a Lamborghini and he's also like $2 million in debt," it doesn't look as good anymore.
Yeah.
And I wonder if there's some kind of fear within there
Yeah.
along those lines.
What's really funny about that is, man, it is so subjective to everybody's experiences and their lives. I've had this one day to the next where an elegant meal, right, for someone is, oh, we spent $40. We went out for a date. Yet, actually, just this morning, folks who say, oh, we'll never be rich, we'll never, go anything. But yeah, oh yeah, last week we just dropped 150 on dinner. That's just, that's not a big deal. That's what we do. So it's so funny when I hear that, where these folks over here make it 300,000. stressed as all can be, living paycheck to paycheck. They don't know how to do it. And then these folks over here who are making 50,000 or less, and they actually think they're doing pretty good in a few ways, and they're not even sure where to go. So it is so based upon their own life and their own experiences and their views on how they see money. And some people are surprised. When I say, do you know statistically you're doing very well? Do you know that? And they don't know. They don't know. They're like, what do you mean? Because it doesn't feel like it. We don't even know what to cut out, And I go into their budget. There's all sorts of stuff to cut out that, if you want your reason why bad enough, you'll cut these things out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's interesting that everybody's different in that way too.
Well, then I imagine that ties, it could be a combination of things, but partly from like childhood experiences. Some people could,
Definitely. Because, talking about the hierarchy, those folks, even though they're making more, they still feel like that kid. They still feel like that they're having to hustle and hustle. And, you're actually doing pretty good, but you're not realizing it. It's hard to see. Absolutely.
Yeah. I'm blanking on questions now. I just had some breakfast.
You had one. I know it was going to be gold. It was going to change our lives, Mike.
Yeah, I'm trying to think about how ways this all ties back. I'll cut this part out if need be. It all ties back to the men's work. Yeah. Here's an interesting one. How often do you find people who marry or get involved with their almost like financial psychological equivalent? Or is it always like a difference? Like a person that comes in like with a very frugal mindset because they grew up poor versus the person they're married to is extremely lavish and extravagant because they had a lot of money and they come together, or is it tends to be like marries like, or polar opposites attract?
Yeah. It seems, that opposites attract thing seems to be real. It always seems to be that way in my own marriage and all the folks I run into. And it seems to be a real thing. What about you? Are you married, Mike?
I'm single.
Oh,
Working on it though.
all right. This year, I'll have been married 11 years and she still likes me. It's amazing.
Nice.
And what I have learned, in learning about my wife and all that, first year we were married, I was like, all right, babe, we're getting out of debt, because I was a nut. I didn't want to be like my parents. That was my driving force. And that was a big fear, huge fear. I was like, I'm not going to be like them. And so I was pushy. I was like, all right, no makeup or hair unless it's Christmas or your birthday. Somehow I survived my first year of marriage. And I would do silly things like we would make a budget, and then 5 minutes, we're talking 5 minutes, Mike. I openly admit this. My wife would like, oh, I want to add something to it. And I would like, nope, the budget's done. We're not adding anything else, because I had such great fear of my parents. And I try to recognize that, in my clients. And I'll tell you, it took a few years, and perhaps I could have gotten out of debt faster by myself, but having the balance of, for example, my wife taught me, hey, we can have a couple pillows along the way, but still achieve our goals. I don't know what the pillows are for. I could have had just a folding chair and a TV. I would have been fine. But learning to work together to where it's not just about me, it's about our team doing something together and working together. And at the end of the day, even with a few things that she wants and a few things that I want, we're still moving faster than we are when we're not aligned, when we're not having that give and take with each other. And so as a man, it was challenging for me because, I would see the full picture. We got to get out of debt. I'm scared. I'm doing this. But my wife, taught me to calm it down a little bit and work through these things and work together. And so I need her and she needed me. But yeah, she was absolutely the spender. I was the nut, but she calmed it down to where we're actually just at peace. And yeah, I might lay on the pillow every once in a while. I appreciate the things that she does, and she appreciates the things that I do. And that's where I think the goal for balancing as a man in any marriage is realizing what other folks bring to the table, even though it's not exactly what your blueprint is or what you think it should be, but yeah, your wife brings things to the table, my brother. She brings. And so appreciate that.
You mentioned, I believe it was Christianity or Christian, or it was Catholic. Do you notice a lot of people who have financial issues or financial struggles tend to also either do or don't have some kind of religious affiliation or some kind of strong community behind them or not behind them? Any correlation there?
I wouldn't say so in particular. Unfortunately, it seems like the folks who are have some sort of affiliation behind them, religious or otherwise, seem to have trouble more with
Mm.
up and have trouble more with feeling bad about where they're at. So that's what I've seen. I always try and turn it positive because hey, let's just be good stewards of what God gives us.
Hmm.
And then my goal for them is how can you get yourself to a point like I talked about earlier to be using all of the talents and gifts that God has given you and not be a slave to debt or anything else anymore because that's that's keeping you from being the hands and feet the way we would like to be as Christians. And surprisingly it's actually the Jewish folks, man, they have a hard time. They are expected to make a lot of money and expected to spend a lot of money on many different things. I was talking to a Jewish friend of mine, and I was just really surprised. Like he was breaking down all the things that he's expected to pay for and do consistently, and he's all like, "Yep, I got to get up to 200,000. I gotta." Like really, wow, and so there are good and bad. It's a double-edged sword. And so that's where, I do think even when you are in debt, it's good to start getting the muscle built of
Hmm.
giving, even if it's a tiny bit, because all that matters is being in the right mindset and honoring God with your finances. It doesn't need to be, oh, I got to do a lot. I got to get up to 10% right now or I'm a terrible person. No, start where you're at. And I'll tell you, it's for me personally, it's a good thing I started young because as you start making more money, it starts to be like, wow, that much. But if you're in, those good habits and have those things going, it's like, yeah, this isn't my money, and I am going to be the best steward I can with 90% of it. Yeah, so
And
it can definitely be a good thing and a bad thing.
do you notice any, I guess the men in particular, who have a strong identity, to, like you said a second ago with the Jewish guy, identity to financial provision above all else? Like, well, what am I if not for my
Yeah,
what I can spend? And then when you come along, he's like, hey, we just created a budget for you. You can no longer buy her 10 grand in jewelry a month.
yeah,
And then there's just sense of like, oh, but I'm not a man anymore.
yeah,
I'm not like what's gonna happen now?
yeah. That's a thing, and a lot of folks, that's where boundaries comes in. In my own life and my wife's and my journey through getting out of debt, my mom's side of the family in particular, they're very strong-willed, and we would have certain things, birthday parties, for example,
Mm.
and these birthday parties happen every few months. And there was one time where my wife and we were just randomly told, all right, we're having 4 birthday parties this weekend. Go. And we're like, well, we didn't plan for that. We didn't know it was coming. We didn't have it in the budget. So it's in those times, whether it be your religion, your family, and this is men, and everybody really has a hard time with saying no and saying we're saying no to this because we're trying to say yes to our vision, what we're fighting for. My wife and we made everybody homemade cards and we made everybody cookies, and that's what we can afford. And of course, yeah, what happened, what's wrong, that's weird. And you have to learn to put, to have the people in your life that are going to build you up and help you achieve your goals, and say no to the folks and the things in your life that aren't helping you. And a lot of folks have trouble with that, but boundaries are truly the key thing to behavior change and life change.
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah, and I wonder then to like how much you have these guys who that yeah, it's gonna almost become like a self-fulfilling prophecy where they become entrenched in the idea that they have to be this provider, which means they have to make the income, and it kind of creates this doom spiral where they're just constantly working, constantly stressing, constantly spending. How often do you get people who come to you, especially men in particular, who like at the same time that maybe they're dealing with financial issues, are also dealing with like health issues? Like they're stressed out of their mind. They just had their second heart attack or something crazy like that.
It happens consistently. And that's where, truly as a coach, it's half numbers, half counseling session, where
Oh
we're
yeah.
we're talking about the past and things like that. And I ask them, what how, going back to how do you want your life to look? And yeah, they don't want to be in these stressful situations. They don't want to be spending so much. Okay, what needs to be true to change that? And when you start going through those things, that's where you find where the boundaries aren't, where they feel like, oh, I have to live here. I have to live in this house, to be near to my family. I have to, I have to, all these have tos. And as far as I know, all you have to do is die and pay taxes, right? Saying, you don't have to do anything. And so really breaking through that is the first step. And I'll tell you, so many of my clients, all sorts of mental issues, not just health, but mental issues where they're just so stressed and so unhappy and so scared. And then the marriage, it's just all connected, where we're living on Red Bulls all the time, to work harder, to not sleep, and then we're cranky because we didn't sleep, and then the wife is all upset, and then everything is the great circle of doom, or the great circle of life. You can pick one.
Yeah. There is it's like a spiral and a feedback in that regard. And in a sense, you're basically pulling debt from yourself into the future by working so hard now.
Yep.
I think like a lot of guys, people in general, have this sense of, I have to sacrifice all of my life to be mildly happy when I'm 60.
Yeah.
Rather than just finding like a cruising speed in life that is just effective and happy and good for you.
Well, and where thankfulness and contentment comes in. When you're at a certain spot and you realize, for example, I think this is where, we have that vision of our reasons why, what we're fighting for in life. But also, on the career side of things, or what we're doing with our time, there's also those values, the vision of what that looks like. I grew up, my dad was a truck driver, gone all the time. And so I knew when I was growing up, I don't want to do that. I want to be home for dinner. I want dinner between 5 and 6 every day. And I want my kids there, and we're going to talk, and we're going to be together and do things. And so you have to realize, okay, that might mean less money. That might mean that. And so being okay with and content with, all right, this is exactly how I want my life to be. Of course, always try, always push. I'm always, working to grow my business that way. But like I told you earlier, my hours are 8 to 3, Monday through Friday. And my phone, everything goes away when my kids come home from school. So I might make less than the coaches who are working on Saturdays and Sundays and in the evenings and things like that. But being content and thankful with where we're at, well, I think helps us to also be even more productive in those periods of time, because I had my Bible time in the morning. I had my workout time before I started. I did these things to set up so that when I get on a call with a client, I'm actually 100% and healthy. And guess what? I help them better. They leave me a review because they had a great time, and they might even throw a tip in there, or longer, or make more money in that way. And that's where I think, the outworking our stupidity issue comes in, where, we're making these mistakes to make ourselves feel better, to buy this, to make the kids happy, blah, 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 blah. Or we can slow down and realize we just make a little bit better decisions, tiny moves to get us going in a different direction.
Now, have you actually ever had to get to the point of like firing a client who was just refusing, reluctant, could not separate with their spending habits? Like, there has to be another way for me to keep this yacht.
Yeah, I've had to do it, man. And it definitely is always surprising. I mean, even, in the very beginning, I always have a consultation before I bring them on board. And it's just as much an interview for me as it is for them. If folks aren't ready, there's no point. It's a waste of time. It's a waste of their money. And if I'm serving them well, I have to see where they're at. Are they ready? Or are they coming in saying, all right, David, you're a coach, but can you just fix my problems and do my budget for me and all that stuff? Like, no, I'm more akin to a gym coach. You're going to do all the work, and I'm going to root you on. I always say, I'm Obi-Wan Kenobi. You're Luke. You have to shoot the torpedo into the Death Star, and I'm going to say, yeah, you got this, kid.
Yeah, a lot of it is empowerment. Autonomy and empowerment's a big one that people have a hard time grasping with.
Yeah, but if they don't do it themselves, then they won't build the habit, and they won't learn anything.
Well, it's a funny analogy to like raising kids there.
Yeah.
People have this. I get this a lot with. I do massage therapy. I took a month or two off since I moved, but I used to have so many conversations with people. Mostly, more often than not, women talking about their husbands. But it was always the same line in some way or another of, how are they this old and they still act this way, as though like age itself, you just get a download from the universe. Like, oh, I understand savings and budgeting now. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, I know what it means to have an IRA and be a responsible parent. Like you said, if person doesn't do it themselves, they're not going to learn it. They're not going to be able to embed it in them.
And that's where a good thing for us all to remember is that words are powerful. So I'm just thinking, I want to tell whatever wife was saying that, hey, your husband's hearing you say that, and that's not
Oh yeah.
feel good. And they're feeling that disrespect from you. I mean, truly, it's not my favorite when folks say, oh, I've got 3 kids at home, and one of them's my husband. No, that's not. That's heading towards a not good thing. And that's, not to bash on the ladies, but that's same husbands where, that nag, that ball and chain, like all these things, we need to put them all to death because they're not helping. They're not helping anybody. And words are powerful. So if we start, actually finding things about our spouse, hey, that's great. That's where motivation and where momentum starts to build, where a team starts to build, and the bad weeds are being pulled out of marriages.
Yeah, like contempt and things like that. Absolutely. How often do you have people come to you in like dire circumstances? Do you ever really get people like, I'm doing well, but I want to do better, versus like, holy crap, my house is on fire, please help?
Most of the time, my house is on fire. I actually this is really funny. I had a lady who literally said, so should I declare bankruptcy or be coached by you? And I'm like, well, I don't want responsibility for that decision. It's up to you, but if you decide with me, we'll do the best we can. And she became a client, and we took it 1 month at a time. It was some tough times, and it took about 4 years, but I actually got to see her in person do her debt-free scream on Ramsey's show. And so it's beautiful, when things like that happen, and I want to keep, them keep going. So yeah, that definitely happens more often than not, because, unfortunately, folks, they see these things coming, but they want to take care of it themselves, and so they get themselves into that position, waiting and hoping it'll magically get better on its own. And sometimes they haven't even heard of a financial coach before. It's still relatively new, in getting into more of the zeitgeist and society.
Where would you say a lot of this almost societal, but almost like cultural debt is coming from? I said it's almost getting worse and worse.
It's funny. Sometimes, I feel like it could be getting worse, but at the same time, I feel like the way human beings are has just always been the same. There's just more of us, so the statistics keep going up, and things like that. It's a real bummer that credit cards came into being. It's
Yeah.
a real bummer because it has really, as a society, turned folks into, I can just get it now. And that's what seems to be getting worse, not the humans themselves, because we're all the same. And if there is a way to get what we want, then we seem to go that way, whatever it is, or an easier way. And that's just human nature. We want to protect ourselves. So an easier way that expels less energy, because I don't have to worry about saving up for it, and I don't have to worry about working for it. I can get it now. It's a trick, really, on our psyche, where it tricks you into thinking, oh, I got this, but it's not actually real. And in the digital realm, where that credit got you this thing, it like Ramsey always talked about, it's good to feel the pain of that money leaving your hand. And it's so easy when, oh yeah, just 4 payments, on that shirt I want to get, or 4 payments on that takeout I want. It makes it so easy that we fall into these holes.
Yeah,
I think real.
Yeah, I remember. I think it was during COVID or something like that. I was stuck home because I actually got sick, and I like DoorDashed a burrito from Chipotle or something like that. And I was like, I do not feel like cooking. Leave it on the doorstep. I'll walk out so I can get it myself. And I check out. It was like an option of like, oh, would you like to break this up into 4 easy payments? I'm like, it's a friggin' burrito. Are you serious? Like, yeah, pay $5 a month for the next 4 months. Like, or just pay it off and move on with your life. Like, what the hell?
But it's like, pay it off. It's a burrito. That's not even. If you're having an issue where you can't pay for a burrito right now, this is like what's it called? This is like Jeff Foxworthy. You might be a redneck. You might be having some financial issues. Man.
So what are the bigger things that you see? I'm curious, maybe there might be a difference between men and women getting into heavy debt over.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any trends between, it could be houses, cars, luxury items like the jet ski or the boat, or maybe it's some kind of hobby they got into. They can't stop buying jewelry. They can't stop buying like makeup, going out to dinner. Like, is there a certain categorization of certain trends you see with people, or is it pretty much like a little bit of everything across the board?
Well, when it comes, gender specific, it always seems like the ladies, it's very much heart related, and or it's death by a thousand cuts.
Mm.
And the guys make the big mistakes. They make the risky investments, or buy, the big thing because they see it all working out. It's going to be great. Or start the business that doesn't work out. The guys make the bigger risks. A lady who, it was one of those things where it didn't work out, kind of had to fire her a while back. It was, I keep having to pay for this for my son. I need to help him with this and help him with that. But it's like, but you don't have the money to do that. Of course, it would be awesome and lovely to do that. But when your cup is empty, there's nothing to pour into another cup. And so that's, a gender specific. That's what I see a lot. The women get themselves into trouble with heart things.
Mm.
My boyfriend will get a job. I'll just pay these things for him for a while. Or, I need to help my daughter, so they fall for that. And the men fall for the big mistakes, like business and risky investments.
Bitcoin, things like
Yeah,
that.
all those Bitcoins. But hey, I'll tell you, if you have, this is my view. If you have 15% of your income at least going into retirement, you've got that. And then you have extra, your house is paid off, right? And you have extra fund money, sure, get some Bitcoin, but plan on losing it and then everything will be okay. It has to be well-rounded, good investments, and Bitcoin just isn't there yet.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
We'll get some history on it eventually, and it'll calm down and hopefully be a little bit more regulated. Then it'll be better off.
And what do we do with the you mentioned a second ago with the woman and her son? I could see that as an extension of, for lack of better words, like toxic empathy. It's like, well, he needs this because I feel bad that he doesn't have the newest pair of shoes, he doesn't have the newest iPhone, versus something like, well,
Well,
we have medical bills to pay.
this particular situation, she was in her 70s, and this was a grown up
I had a feeling,
year
yeah.
old man. So it was more serious for him in this way. But then it's like, yeah, you've probably been treating him this way this entire life, and this is where we're at now.
Yeah, yeah.
And so not being able, and that's where boundaries come in. We cannot help anybody else until we help I mean, literally, it's the airline. We've all been on airlines. You have to put your oxygen mask on first before you put it on the baby. You think, I have to save the baby, but it's no good unless you're strong. It's
Mm-hmm.
good unless you're strong. And that's what, I would say that's one of the big things that everybody needs to take away from this right now. Men, women, everybody, you know, you have to get yourself right first. Even as a Christian, and anything that you want to do in your life, any impact that you have, you can't go 10 steps ahead saying, I want to be at that, hilltop, light and sitting on a hill. No, we have to get up the hill first.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the big thing. Folks want to jump those steps, and we have to take the first step in front of us first.
Sprinting up that hill.
Same
Yeah.
way with investment. Speaking of COVID time 2020, a lot of clients of mine, oh, I didn't actually have an emergency fund. I've lost my job. We're in trouble. So now I have to empty out all my investments, because all I have is the credit card for emergencies instead of actual money.
Mm.
And that's what I ran into a lot. And I use that as an example. Each step protects the other step. So let's get, a starter emergency fund. Let's get out of debt. Let's build up a full emergency fund. Then let's start investing, because if things hit the fan, we're going to go through all these things first, margin in our budget, our emergency fund, before we touch the investments. And that's where you want to be. Not, we have savings. Yeah, but you're going to get taxed up the wazoo if you touch them. You're not supposed to do that. Or you're living on a credit card. So each step protects the other step, and fill your own cup first. All right, everybody? Let's put that on a post-it.
Do you notice with the credit card thing a lot of like a multi-generational problem there? Like, well, my parents just threw everything in their credit cards, and now I'm throwing in my credit cards. My kids are going to throw in their credit
Oh, yeah.
like the debt thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I would say that has a lot of aspects to it. Generational, the feeling that everybody has that we have to do it. We have,
Mm,
just what we talked about earlier, that have to. I have to have a FICO score, or my life will never, will all just blow up, and I have to do this. No, you don't have to do anything. There are, you might have to call ahead. You might have to do some extra work to get a mortgage, but you don't need to do that. And that's where, our poor 18-year-olds, they get, all right out of the gate, you get a credit card and a student loan. Woo!
yep.
Get it now, because it's going to make your life easier later. Nope.
Yeah.
And that's where I am hopeful. As we're moving into the future, I think folks are starting to get it, that we have to stop one size fits all living. We have to stop. You have to have a degree or you won't be successful. We have to. And so, at least my generation, my kids, yeah, we're going to be talking about various ways that you can start a career. And I'm putting money aside for my kids, not just for college. I call it just the whatever, is needed fund. If they want to start a business, how cool would that be? Instead of putting money towards a college, help them start a business right now at 18. That's cool, and things like that. And I think that'll be, and I'm hoping to see in the future that that's actually how we're helping our kids, instead of, okay, you're a square, you're a circle, you're this, you're that. That's what I did. That's what your grandparents did. I think we are slowly getting away from that kind of thing. Unfortunately, I grew up with my grandpa being if he had a hint of one of his grandchildren not going to college, he'd have a dinner with us and he would talk about
Mm,
have to go, but it's tough because it makes sense, because when he was growing up, it makes sense. That's how you grew up, but things have changed. Things have shifted. And we now have a bunch of people with degrees working at Starbucks. Not that that's a bad job, but they even would tell you that's not what they planned on doing. They wanted
yep.
to do that. So now they have, 60,000 or more in debt working at Starbucks, and they don't know what to do and they have no hope.
Yeah. That's unfortunately more common across the board.
Yeah. And that needs to change.
Yeah. And I wonder, do you get people that you work with that sometimes the requirement is to just straight up move?
Like location wise?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
Job wise could be one thing, but location could be another. So personally, I grew up in New York and it was great when I was a kid. And my God, is it expensive now? It's getting off the charts for just like a 2 bedroom, 2 bathroom house. I don't know what the number. I think it was like $600,000, maybe like upwards of seven in certain areas, like the middle class areas
yeah.
where I grew up in. And I moved down to Georgia for a variety of reasons, money and financial reasons aside. Like I may have been able to make it work, but then again, like you said earlier, like at what cost? Like you work 8 to 3 because you want to see your kids.
Yeah.
I saw so many people back in New York who just like they have a great income and they never see their family, and their wife and their husband hates them and their kids don't get along with them and they just don't understand what the problem is. Oh, kids these days, and it's just
Yeah.
it ties into this idea, which is so interesting. Is that when you very beginning when you said like you are enough, you deserve it, you are enough. I tell this to lots of the guys that I work with. Sometimes I have guys that I work with who are just like convinced, like I have to get 300,000, I have to get $400,000
Yeah.
because my kids need to have and it's almost like a dog. When you have a little kid, especially, it's like the dog does not know if it lives in a mansion or a crappy apartment. As long as it gets like food, water, and belly rubs,
Yeah.
it's the happiest person in the world.
Yeah.
Kids are really no different. The best you can do with a kid is to have a stable, comfortable home environment. There's plenty of curiosity and exploration and love and care, whether that's like an apartment or a mansion.
Yep.
And so often I see people chasing the mansion and giving up the other half, which is the time and energy needed to actually invest with them.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you said it right there, man. It's absolutely imperative to hang out with our kids and get dirty with them and run around with them. And my boys, yeah, I have two little boys, 6 and 7 years old, and their joy in life is, Dad, can you jump on the trampoline?
Mm-hmm.
I just want you to jump on the trampoline. And they'll even tell me, Dad, I haven't had enough time with you. And it makes me laugh. It makes me laugh because in my mind, they're so spoiled when it comes to time with me and my wife compared to how I grew up. Like I'm thinking through that lens. I'm like, what? Like I saw my dad on the weekend and he was sleepy most of the time because he was getting tired from getting up at 3 a.m. every day. And so, yeah, that's all they need. They just need you guys. You don't have to do anything but show up, be there every day. And And it's like, at the end of the day, you're investing because you might end up living with them when you're old. So wouldn't it be nice to have a good relationship with your kids because they might be the ones wiping your butt?
Yeah, the money is an everything thing is a massive line for a lot of men. Like it's important to have a good sense of your finances and a
Yeah.
sense of the future, but I had a friend who back in New York, and she worked as a EMT in a very, very, very affluent area, and 80% of the calls were teenagers and kids overdosing on drugs. And the amount of times that I'd get stories of like a kid in the back of the ambulance, this is like this third or fourth time attempting suicide or something like that through just, pills and whatnot. And at the same time, while they're driving to the hospital, the kid's father is like literally in the back of the ambulance, like taking business calls.
No way.
That's 100% serious. Yeah. And
Wow.
the kid is like screaming, like, you never cared about me. All I care about is money. And the guy's like, you buy Tesla, sell Google, make sure the contract goes through. And they're just working like 80, 90 hours a week. And it's just how many different instances you see where people are just, and again, it's almost like it's an abuse of parts of human psychology. Like it's okay to be competitive.
Yeah.
It's okay to be ambitious. Maybe want to garner a little bit more status because you worked hard. You're ambitious. You want to show off. Peacock a little bit. But when it gets taken to extremes, like things like credit cards, it gives you an opportunity to like try to elevate your status artificially.
Yeah. Credit cards, financing. Yeah. It's artificial. It is not real. And that's where I think what comes to mind is the movie Click. Did you ever see that movie?
Yeah, with Adam Sandler.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
is such a good thing to watch. Everybody go watch that movie because he is bypassing everything in his life, and then all of a sudden he has this huge business. He's in this huge building, and he's done all this, and his son doesn't. He's kind of part of the business, but he's actually closer to his stepdad now because he got a divorce and he lost his marriage and all these things. And that is, a really good reminder for all of us, today's special. Right
Mm-hmm.
now is special. This moment, look into your kids and your wife's eyes. This is special right now. You don't need to get enough money to create a special vacation for them. Right here. Just talk to them about what happened today. And that is special and will be much more memorable in the future. And you might learn, about
Mm-hmm.
your family more and have more of an influence in their lives to help them.
Yeah. And I wonder, yeah, even within that, it's interesting that a lot of people don't realize the power of bonding, especially on like a neurological level that going through a tough experience together has on a partnership.
Yeah.
Have you ever had have you ever had any couples that ended up like separating because of
Oh,
the changes in their financial situation that you're basically forced, I don't say forcing, but really encouraging? They're like, if we can't buy a yacht, then I'm leaving you.
I actually have not as of yet. I wouldn't say that's because I'm so amazing. I've just been blessed. Yeah, I have not as of yet. Most of the time, their life is better and less stressful.
Well, through an adjustment period, I imagine it goes through too.
Oh yeah. Well, what I always tell folks is, and especially my Christian folks is when you start, it always seems like everything comes out of the woodwork. You get going and then all of a sudden life happens. So I really encourage them, plan on something showing up or something happening or something going wrong 1 month in. It's always about 1 month in that will start to change because, I feel like, it could be, I do feel like it's the devil, and also the law of the harvest, even though we're starting to change, something out there doesn't want you to change
Mm,
because the enemy does not want you to have impact on the world, does not want you to change your life. This desperate you, this down on your luck, down on everything, negative way of living, that's exactly where he wants you. Then that means that you won't be cutting in on his business, you'll be distracted, working on all these other things and being stuck. And so I always say that. So we have to push through that. And literally, it is consistent. Extra stuff always comes up a month in, or something happens in their life. And then I say, all right, you used to run to borrowing money from a family, running to the credit card. What are we going to do differently here? In this crisis,
mm-hmm.
what are we going to do differently? And that's where they can see. A great example of that is I had a client, and it was about a month in, and they wanted to go visit their daughter because she was about to start college. So they wanted to get the airline tickets right now, and they didn't have the money for it. So I'm
Mm.
like, hey, let's put it to a test. Let's wait and do it the right way. Save up the money for it and wait. And they're like, airline tickets, they like to go up, if you wait too long to get them and all that. And so I'm like, hey, let's just see. And so it took them, I think, 2 or 3 months to actually save up the money for it. And indeed, the tickets went up. But when they went to buy them, there was some sort of coupon or something that they got, and it brought it down to the exact amount it was.
Oh, wow.
So I believe if we can just, especially starting out with any change that we want to make in life, you have to have a stubbornness about you. And that's why you have to have a strong reason why to go through those barriers, because, they want to stop you. Whoever they are, whatever you believe, something wants to stop you and keep you from getting where you need to be.
Yeah, sometimes you get those internal demons and saboteurs. We refer to those like inner saboteurs when we work with guys. It's like whatever your behavior pattern that got you here does not want you to change.
Yep.
And you have to almost anticipate ahead of time that it's going to be there.
Because
and then
the brain believes that that's safe.
Yes.
That it's used to that quid pro quo, and that's how it is. And absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. So what do you recommend for people who are any guys who are just like, holy crap, I don't see any hope in the future. I have a ton of debt. Where do we even start for like the average person?
Yeah. Write down what you want your future to look like. That's their first step. And your reason why should make you cry. Write down what you want to do. When I was first heading towards getting out of debt, I saw, a fire happening, and I was like, wow, I want to, in my heart, I want to fill a truck with water and go and help until it's done. But I have to do this job because I have to pay these debts off, and I'm stuck. So what makes you tick? What do you want to do with your life, with your future? Write it down and say, all right, I want this. This is what I feel is my meaning, or what I'm feeling pulled to do. What do I need to do today, this little thing, to start making this a reality? And, and of course, put that up there, but take it one day at a time. When I've tried to change my behaviors, there are sometimes, Mike, where I've had to take it a half hour at a time.
Yes.
Behavior change is hard because we have to make those new neural pathways and change them from how they've been for possibly 20, 30 years, and so it took a long time to get here, and it's going to take a long time to get out, but it will get easier if you just keep making one good decision after another.
And in terms of prioritizing paying off debt, I think my guess is the usual shtick is like highest interest to lowest interest.
I do highest what you owe. I'm sorry, lowest what you owe. Strike that, reverse it. So the smallest debt to the largest debt. And this is actually funny. I was an office manager and in California before I moved here. And we actually tested it with a business I was working at. We took all their debts and we went interest method or smallest to largest method, and almost exactly the same, like debt payoff. But when it comes to personal finance, what's nice about smallest to largest is you're getting quicker wins.
Yeah.
And you're doing that snowball method. So it's helping you say, oh, okay, that worked. That worked. If you go the other way, okay, the highest interest is 20,000, but we're stuck with 1,000 and 5,000, like all these other things, but we're fighting this, you're going to get tired. But if we're moving up and using that debt snowball method, we're gaining speed, gaining momentum, and getting it done.
And what in the case if you have some extremely lopsided debt? If you had like a $50,000 loan at like 25% interest, something insane, versus like a $5,000 at like 2%.
Yeah. Well, I would still do it the same way because it also takes focus. And so what'll be nice is when we get to that high interest, because, what I teach, this is all about speed. It's not, I'm going to wander out of debt. It's I'm going to run. I'm aiming every single thing, every penny, every day, working extra, selling things, like everything I possibly could to attack. It's not, oh yeah, 5 years from now, we're still getting out of debt. No, now we need to be out of debt yesterday. And so if you go in with that mentality, if you're fast enough, we can make interest not even be a big deal. And the goal is by the time you get to that big, 20,000, 50,000 one, you're going to have now all of the money, pretend all of those other debts are still there, and use that now big chunk to pay this off faster. Because if we get caught up where we're trying to pay off everything, you don't get anywhere. you don't get things done.
What kind of, I guess depending on who the person is, if you have a guy making $200,000-$300,000 a year, it's more just a habit and lifestyle change. Since his job is probably like, I can't imagine the guy making 300 grand a year is going to be driving Uber on the side, but he could if he needed to.
Yeah.
But the guys who may be lower on the socioeconomic totem pole, what kind of side jobs and odd jobs do you think would you recommend for guys who are struggling? The guy person with 60 grand at Starbucks, what are they doing on the side?
Yeah. Anything and everything that your skills align. Because, and at the same time, have a balance. With my clients, we talk about sometimes where, hey, let's go hard for 3 months and then let's pause for a month. Because if you're just going only hard, you burn out and the behavior is hard to keep up. And so I ask my clients, what can you do or go without for a 3-month period of time, a 6-month period of time, have things set in place? Because, a lot of these guys, they have families. They don't actually want to be gone all the time. So I definitely give grace for a little bit of balance there. Like, let's go hard and then let's spend some family time. We paid off a good chunk and then let's attack it again. Sometimes you have those rhythms, as well as, this is what my wife and I did. When we paid off something, we'd have a little party. And each thing we paid off, we did something bigger and nicer for the bigger things we paid off. And ultimately, the last thing we paid off when we were completely out of debt, we went and hung out at Disneyland.
Nice. Okay, one last question. We'll probably wrap it up there. I'm actually curious. Have you had people you work with, especially I think men, I would wager men, but women might do it differently, who may have incurred, part of the debt may have been incurred from certain habits that you're using to almost like numb out. So maybe like they're spending a lot of money on weed, porn, video games, alcohol, collectibles of some sort, and it's almost like, well, you need to stop doing that. But in the form of doing that, you also had and then take away the thing that was buffering against all the pain you've been holding up to this point.
Yeah. With that, since my goal is to really try and meet them where they're at, what I have found is when we start working through these things and they start seeing the consequences, because a lot of folks, they don't want to look at their bank account. They don't want to look. They don't even want to look. And so it's almost the clarity and the showing and the visibility of taking everything out of the dark helps folks. And then when they're feeling less stressed, when they're feeling more in control, naturally they want, I like this feeling. And then I start chasing that feeling. And those things eventually, from what I've seen, start to fall off because they're not needed anymore.
Yeah.
Because of the work that we're doing.
You get addicted to paying off your debt and building surplus rather than addicted to generative habits rather than addicted to consumptive habits. Yep. It's like I wake up in the morning and I can't function without doing my yoga versus I wake up in the morning and I have to scroll on YouTube for 3 hours straight or else I can function. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, this has been a fantastic chat. Thank you so much for your time. Where can we find your content?
Yeah, I am all over the place. Facebook, Instagram, Coach David Gibbs. On Instagram, Coach David 87. You'll find my website as well on there. I am doing something super fun on Friday. I'm not sure, when will this air, actually?
Probably next week or 2 weeks from now.
Okay, awesome. Well, 2 weeks from now, I'll still be doing it on that Friday. Is Movie Money Mashup. So I'm going with my friend, Coach Laura Sexton, and we're picking movies, and then we're talking about the money lessons we can learn from them. So it's every 2 weeks, on Friday. It's live on Facebook right now.
Awesome. That's
so this Friday will be the first one. We're doing Galaxy Quest, and then 2 weeks from there, we're going to do another one.
I haven't seen Galaxy Quest in such a long time. Holy crap. That's a blast from the past.
Yeah, never give up, never surrender. All right, man. Well, thank you so much for having me.